Okay, here's the deal. When I first started animating, I had so much trouble finding actual behind the scenes footage from my favorite animators. And when I say behind the scenes footage, I mean like, what does your Adobe Animate file look like? What does your Audacity file look like? What does your FL Studio file look like for your music? And I feel like I never got that. So going forward, I want to take some time and go through how I make these cartoons. So today we're going to go through backflips. This was the last episode of the Green Show that I did, and I made this in a day. So I want to walk you guys through my entire animation process. Let's do it. Step one for me is going to be draw it out. This is normally where I get my sketchbook and I sit on the couch for a little bit, but not too long. If you're trying to make cartoons fast, you kind of got to limit how long you're in the brainstorming phase. And I'm not saying you have 5 minutes as if this is some kind of art challenge, but don't sit on the couch for 4 hours for a 30-second short. You really won't know if the idea is good or not until you animate it. So do what you can here and then move on. For the Green Show, Green gets asked questions from commenters. So typically I'll find a good comment. Here's one. And then I'll go and I'll write it at the top of the page, or at least an abbreviated version of it. Then I'll draw small pictures to depict what Green and the other characters should be doing. This isn't like an actual storyboard. These are just like small ideas so I can see the rest of the cartoon in my head as I'm going. At some point in this process, I said, yeah, that's good enough. So I closed my sketchbook and I went to my computer to type out the script. Step 2 is write the script. Now for me, I like to make my scripts on Notepad. The reason I do that is I don't have to worry about formatting or anything like that. And at the end of the day for me, this isn't going to be an archived document that I'll save for later. It's a working document that I'll make changes to as I record the lines. If you look here at the script for backflips, you can see that there's some lines in here that didn't make it to the final cut. And even though this is considered a script and it's a guide for me to read off of, I end up improvising quite a bit when I'm recording the lines, and if I find that funnier, I'll just go with that. Quick pause here. A fat Italian is the name of a sandwich my family likes to make. I'm not inferring that pork chop is bringing people from the country of Italy. That's it. Step 3 is record the audio, which is what I'm doing right now. Typically, when I record audio for these cartoons, if I know it's going to be under about a minute long, I'm going to make it one Audacity file. If it's over a minute, typically I'll record in 30-second to 1-minute chunks. I'll also try to record all the characters in one go, that way I can get a better idea of how the dialogue should flow. When possible, I'll make my own sound effects and put them into this file here too. I like to get things from around my office and make those sounds. So for example, this ladder smack sound that I have in here, that was me smacking a coaster that I had against my desk, doubling it, and then adding some effects to it. I've also reused sound effects from previous cartoons to save on time. There's actually a sound effect in my file that I think was in the first episode ever that's called Jimmt, Jimmt. That was me trying to spell Jimmy, and it doesn't sound like a Jimmy at all. It's just like a very distorted smack sound, and I use that quite a bit. So if you hear this sound, it's Jimmt. For finalizing the audio, I'll typically use a compressor and a graphic EQ tool, and occasionally a sound reduction tool if there's any background noise that I want to get rid of. This is then exported as a .wav file and put in the folder for the cartoon. Okay, step number 4 is animation. This part of the video is going to be a little bit different. This is just me sharing my screen and walking you guys through the Flash file. So what I have here, this is an Adobe Animate 2024 file. It is paid software, however, I do find that it's worth it. If you don't want to pay money for the software, there's also OpenTunes, Flip-a-Clip, Pencil 2D, and Blender that are free options out there. But yeah, I use Adobe Animate 2024. So let's look at the settings over here that I use. For frames per second, or FPS, I use 24. That's how many frames you have until you hit 1 second of animation duration. The reason I use 24 is because I actually like to animate on 2s, which technically makes Green's movements 12 frames per second. So notice there's a gap right here in the frames. That's to make it a little more choppy looking, not as fluid, and I kind of like that look. I could animate at 12 frames per second, which I have in some cartoons. However, keeping it at 24 and then just going every other frame allows me a little bit more granularity when it comes to lip sync. So you'll notice again, if we look at Green, oh, there we go. There's some space here, and then you get frame, 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 and frame, 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 and that's strictly so I can move Green's mouth. Sometimes I will make Green move on 1, so he is 24 frames a second. That's if there's a very quick motion that has to happen. For these 30-second shorts that I've been doing, I tend to not name the layers. I feel like there's not really a point to it if I know what they are. So like layer underscore one over here, I know is the background because it's the further down one. Here's a prop. Green is going to be right here. And then there's props, and then sound effects are going to be on the top. You can put sounds within like drawn frames. However, the next time you make a new frame over there, you're going to get rid of the sound. It's just going to stop it. So if I were to be like, oh, I want a frame here, now there's no sound right here. So just making its own layer makes it a lot easier. For the aspect ratio, I do use a 640 by 480. That's a 4:3 aspect ratio. That's what you would have with like a CRT TV. That's 480p. I like that because it gives me kind of a cozy, nostalgic feeling. It also makes it really easy to make shorts. So if we look at, I think it's this one. Yeah, the shorts file here. If I had a 16 by 9 aspect ratio, I would have to do a lot more work to make this taller, and I'd have a lot more overhang on the sides. Because it's a 4:3 aspect ratio, I just had to zoom out a little bit more and add a little more height to this background piece, and I was able to make it into a short form video, that being a 1080 by 1920. Okay, so right here is also a reuse sound effect. This is the pop SFX. So I have, I think it was the Green Show 9 Cool Guy. I think I pulled this from, so I just took this and copied it over to this. So yeah, if we look at Green's movements, we'll just play it here. So there's a lot going on there. I don't use the camera tool for zooms. So if we go here, it's out and then it kind of goes in. You can tell it's zoomed in because this black frame right here is like the screen you can see. I don't use the camera tool. I'll actually just make a new keyframe. I'll highlight these. I'll grab this transform tool and just make everything bigger and then drag it to where I need it to be, and then I'll animate the scene. It's kind of janky, but it works. For this scene, this like isometric view of the roof was drawn in the sketchbook earlier, and I liked the way it looked, so I kept it. The way I got it to look like this with no outline, it's actually a tip that I learned from Ed Gold. Ed Gold was the creator of Ed's World. Rest in peace, Ed. He's one of the original like Newgrounds animators. And on a live stream, and I watched it when I was younger, he showed that if you want, let's say you're drawing a box of some kind, you want to get the same effect, what you can do is, okay, that's kind of a strange looking box, but that's going to work. We'll go to the paint bucket tool. We'll go to colors, make sure alpha's at 100. So we want to make it like a blue. So we'll make this side this color. We'll decrease the brightness, increase the hue. Now we'll get a little darker over there. And then since this top's going to be, let's say it's exposed to light, so it's going to be a little bit brighter and a little bit less hue. And now we got that. And then to get rid of these lines, what you can do is you can highlight it. Oh, we're going to do it like that. There we go. And you can go to this tool and get rid of the lines, so you get the same thing. Or you can double click on it and then hit delete. The reason I don't use lines on the background parts is so it doesn't take your eyes away from green or other movements that's happening. It's supposed to sit in the background. It's not supposed to be an important part of the scene, just supposed to kind of fill up space in a way. You can also see some laziness right here. There's a missing rung on the ladder. Why is there a missing rung? Well, when I was making this, I saw that it's going to start here, and I decided it's going to end up right about here on the roof. This gutter and this corner of the roof is covering that. So I don't need to draw that. There's also a smear frame right here and right here. So you don't see it again as an actual ladder until it strikes the side of the roof. There's also an alpha being at the transparency level, it's 28%. Yellow, just to kind of give it like that cartoony smack effect. Followed by it bouncing back. And then bouncing again, just to give it a little more life. So that's also the coaster smack sound back there too. This Miata, I didn't mention this when I was talking about the rest of the process for making a cartoon. I actually bought a 2003 Mazda Miata in this color, and the guy actually didn't give me my title for over 40 days, which in the state of Ohio, you can get a refund up to $9,000 if they don't give it to you, just an FYI. And it legitimately didn't have working brake lights or a working horn. When you hit the aftermarket horn, it would blow the fuse for the brake lights. So I was driving around without brake lights for a week. Not too happy about that. Love the car otherwise. So, real life makes into a cartoon. For drawing this though, if you go to the library, I got just a picture of a Miata, just a side profile from Google Images. And what I did was, if we go like this layer, drag it on, and then we go another layer up, and we get our line tool out, and we go here, we make this like a bright color. What I did was I just kind of traced it, kind of went like this, give it a rough outline. And for the parts that need curves, you can go to this cursor tool and you can drag these parts around just to give you a rough shape here. Yeah, see, and then you got that, and then you just go all the way around. I mean, do similar to what I did with the backgrounds with deleting lines on the inside. Nothing crazy, but that's how I made that Miata. And then, of course, there's a shadow underneath. All the shadows are like 20 to 25% alpha black. I just color them in. This slow zoom, there's 2 layers here that are part of it. There's the Miata, and then there's the background. I just made 1 frame here, and then 1 frame over here. Hit right click. It's create motion tween or classic tween. I think this is actually a classic tween. And then it slowly zooms it in for you. If you look, Green's finger turns to a point. That's because all of his hands are in this symbol, this 1 green arm. So anytime I draw a new arm, typically I'll save it in here, and then I'll put that in the season 2 template file. So if you are using rigs, I highly suggest you do something like this where you have all your characters or commonly used props in one file, so you can just go and drag and drop them. So like for this, I actually went like this, copy, and then put them in here. That makes it easier. For selecting these arms without having to go like right click, swap symbol, or doing something like that, you just click on it and then frame picker. And then when you are on the frame you want to change it to, if like, let's say I want to bring it down a little bit to this, you click on it and then it'll automatically add a keyframe there. So we'll step forward here. And then zoom out. I'm actually not super happy with the way this turned out. It's just a spacing thing. So if you watch, this is a tween down here for the shadow. So as Green's higher up, has a smaller shadow. As he goes further down, slowly gets bigger, and then smacks. It gets a lot wider, and then it goes back to his normal size. But for the smack sound, I actually, if you look, the frame where he smacks is actually right before this. I could have put it here, which is like after it or at it. Typically, if you're gonna have like a smack followed by a sound effect, I found that it looks a bit better to put the actual action of the smack where the character makes contact 1 frame before the sound effect, just to give your eyes and ears time to process it. Also with Green hitting the ground, he's gonna get wider. He's gonna expand right here, followed by going back to a more narrow state, so he's a little bit longer now, and then back to normal. Also, if you look, Porkchop is watching him as he falls. That's something I didn't do at the very beginning. If you have one character moving, it's best to have the other character doing something on screen, just so it gives your eye somewhere to look at. So as Green's falling, Porkchop's watching him. So if you see here too, Green's legs are shaking as he's talking. Something I do to kind of automate the process of like shaking or repetitive motions is I'll create a new symbol with those other symbols where I want them, and then I'll add another frame. So there's frame 1, frame 2, nothing's happening, and then frame 3, they're right there. Because this is a graphic, that'll play continuously if I hit, let's see, this button here. So play graphic in a loop. So I don't have to keep animating Green's legs moving like that. They'll just move on their own. And that's what I have for the eyes too. So Green's eyes are open until frame 32 where they're closed. If I want Green's eyes to be closed, like for a specific frame, similar thing. So like over here, I'll switch this to Play single frame for the graphic so I can select which one it is, and that would be Green's eyes being closed. And that's the Adobe Animate file. Step number 5 is make some music. I'm going to keep this pretty quick because I'm no expert in making music, but I'll try to explain what I did here. This is FL Studio trial version. You get a bunch of plugins, bunch of samples. The only thing you can't do with it is you go File, and you try to open something. It's not going to open. You have to pay for the full version to get that feature. If we go here, that's the MIDI. That's your pattern. We'll go here, that's our tracks. There it is. Yeah. So if we look at this, this is our channel rack, and this is where you make the loop at. So a couple things going on here. I have my synthesizer, which is just the 3x OSC. That's one of the more simple synthesizers in FL Studio. The reason I use the simple one is if we were to look at like, Citrus, and you look at all the different things you could do to your sound, and then all the different presets, you could get pretty lost pretty quickly. So for the most part, if I'm trying to do something quickly, and I know in general it's going to be a simple loop in the background, I'll use 3x OSC. And then I have a normal melody down here, so E, E, G, F, D. So this is your main melody. And then a couple octaves higher, I have the counter melody, so boop, boop, boo, doo, doo, doo. And having a melody and a counter melody and different octaves gives it a little bit more life to it. And then for the drum tab, we have kick, snares, hi-hats, and a splash. These hi-hats are supposed to be the same hi-hat, but different samples will make it sound a little bit less artificial, so just doesn't sound exactly the same every time. For the snares, I use this tool over here. You can change the velocity, so you see you have 3 snare hits in fairly quick succession. In real life, when you hit a snare drum that many times in a row, you're not going to get the same velocity every time. So we'll bring this one down, this one up, this one down a little bit, give it a little bit more life. Right here are the tracks, so 1 through 10, and then 11 is kind of jammed in there. I forget why I did that. And those correlate with here, so you can see the individual instruments lighting up, and you can change the volume of them. So like this is the synthesizer, so I brought this one down a little bit. Also added an EQ filter to it, so the mids are cut a little bit, and then the super highs and super lows are cut. And I did this with most of the other instruments. This one, I'm not actually using gross beat, but just EQ, and then this is the master track. And what I did here, not that one, went here. I know my voice sits around this range right here, so I cut that down. So if I have myself talking, my voice will cut through the mix while this is down a little bit lower. Cut the super highs. Yeah, pretty basic stuff. And then when you're all done with that, you can go over here. Oh, where did that go? Is it arrangement? There it is. And you just put this pattern down a couple times. This ends up being about 30 seconds. File, export, and then you're done. So that's how I make music for the most part. The final step is cleanup and just fixing things up a little bit. So I added the music in here. So back in the Flash file, exported it as newbeat.wav, put it in there, asking anyone to leave Green a question. And then I have to make the thumbnail and the shorts version. So for the thumbnail, I dragged some of the other assets from the cartoon in here, added a big red arrow too with a drop filter on it. And then I made this background slightly less saturated so it wouldn't take your eyes away from Green. I think I made him a little more saturated too. Yeah, just a little bit. I'm not a master at thumbnails, but this is how I did it. And then I just went File, and then I exported this as an image. And then for the shorts version, what I've been doing is, if you go in here, this is actually the entire cartoon in a symbol. And then I named it whole movie. And then I'll put it here. I'll zoom in. I'll change some assets. So like this will be a little bit higher just because it's a shorts version. And anytime I need the frame to move so it fits properly, I'll just make a new keyframe and then move it to where I need it to go. And since I already made it 1080 by 1920, I just export it as that, and it's ready for YouTube Shorts. You still have to put the music back in, because if you have music and sounds within the symbol and not in like the main scene, it's not going to play. So that's how I do the shorts and the thumbnail. So that's how I make a cartoon. I felt like backflips was a pretty basic one to go over, so I went through the whole process. In future episodes, I'll probably go through more specifics for that specific episode. Yeah. If there's anything you guys want to see in particular, let me know in the comments down below. And I think that's it. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.